that then, because I know that's really comprehensive for what's going on with the community.
Okay, so we are back. We do apologize for the technical difficulties. What we're gonna have to do is we will record today's webinar and post it after to Facebook so people can ask questions that may not have accessed the Zoom link. And as we're discussing things, I'll put a post just to let people know we have technical difficulties. And Frank, I'll tag you if you can reshare that as well. So if we do get some questions on Facebook to ask, we can make sure we ask it here. And then in the recording, they'll be able to see what the answers were. And I know I see a question from Faye Hill, who's on. Hi, Faye. We will get to as well. So we can go ahead and get started. So greetings, everyone, and good evening. We do apologize for the delayed start. We were trying to work out some technical kinks in the back. Unfortunately, it was beyond our control, and it seems to be something with the Facebook connection. So I'm super excited to host tonight's town hall. This is the second town hall that I have had the honor and privilege of hosting in partnership with Franck Joseph, who is the Deputy Commissioner for the New York City Commission on Human Rights. Frank also, like myself, lifelong Southeast Queens residents, and just wanting to leverage our relationships across the city to really be able to bring agency officials into a space where the community can ask questions. We both have been hearing a number of questions around transportation or DOT related issues, especially most recently, I attended a civic meeting with the Springfield Gardens Taxpayer Association, and it was a number of Department of Transportation questions on that. And so we thought this would be a good opportunity to just bring the community together with Department of Transportation and really talk about some things. In addition to a recent report, which I'm sure Frank will go a little bit into, that his agency published not too long ago. And so we're super excited to be able to have this discussion. And so I will next kick it over to Frank.
Yes, thank you, Selvena. I'm so excited that we're able to do this again. As Selvena said, this is the second community conversation or town hall that we've been able to host. We're so excited that we're able to touch about this. My agency, the New York City Commission on Human Rights, is an agency that combats discrimination and bias incidents across the city in employment, in housing, and public spaces. We also have something called discriminatory harassment. So most people have heard of the Central Park incident between Amy Cooper and Christian Cooper, where a man who was bird watching told another person that the dog wasn't allowed in a space where dogs weren't allowed in the park. And she decided to call the cops and weaponize his race against him. We would consider that to be discriminatory harassment, to try to intimidate him based on his race and threaten him using the state or any other means. That's also something that's under our purview, and we announced right after that incident that we were investigating it. We also have something called bias-based profiling by law enforcement. But one thing that we've been working on these past few years is looking at anti-Black racism and its history and legacy here in New York City. And in doing that, we were able to conduct a qualitative analysis and put together a report that talks about the issues that Black New Yorkers face. And across focus groups, participants expressed concerns about the high cost of living and made references to expenses related to housing, food, childcare, and transportation. And this we felt was a perfect partnership, as Selvena and I were talking, to really do something in our community, Southeast Queens, as a predominantly Black community, as a community that is dominated by communities of color, to talk about some of these issues. We were able to talk about food deserts and food disparities, and now we're grateful to talk about transportation issues. Before I introduce to you all the panel that we have from the Department of Transportation, who will go into some projects that are related to Southeast Queens, I'd be remiss if I did not share with you just the partners who worked with Selvena and I, who bought into this vision, who said we need to have this type of intimate conversation here in Southeast Queens. So we would like to thank New York City Council member Donovan Richards. Of course, we would like to thank the Department of Transportation. We'd like to thank the Community Church of Far Rockaway of the Nazarene. We also would like to thank the NAACP. We would like to thank the volunteers of Springfield Park, and we would also like to thank the Friends of Brookfield Park. So thank you all. We have a dynamic panel. You'll see that we have Jason Banry, who's with us, who is the Deputy Borough Commissioner for Queens. We have Samantha Dolgoff, who's with us, who's the Director of Special Initiatives, as well as Andrew Arcis, who's the Borough Planner. Forgive me if I mispronounce any names, but without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic to the Department of Transportation, who's going to tell us about their roles and what they do, and some special projects happening here in Southeast Queens. And then we're going to move into question and answer.
Awesome. Thank you, Selvena and Frank, for putting this on. Special thanks to the council member and all those other stakeholders that you mentioned that are a part of making this happen. We're very proud to be here tonight to talk to our neighbors and our family of Southeast Queens. This team does a lot of work in Southeast Queens, and we see this as an opportunity to broaden our outreach in these communities. If we don't know you, we want to walk out of this room knowing you. We want to know what your issue is and work with you on solving that, whether it be on a group basis, through your civic, through your block association, or just as an average, ordinary individual, who might live in Springfield Gardens, St. Albans, or any other community that's within Southeast Queens. Once again, my name is Jason Banry. I am the Deputy Borough Commissioner, one of the Deputy Borough Commissioners for the Department of Transportation here in Queens. And I've been doing this work for maybe about going on 5 years now, I think, next year. And it's the best job I've ever had in my life. One of it's because of the individuals, my brothers and sisters that I'm joining you with. I'm born and raised in Queens. I eat, sleep, and breathe Queens, and so it's all I do, and it's a lot of all this team does. A lot of our members, our representatives are from Southeast Queens. I'm from Queens in general, and we do have some folks that from our agency, of course, that are in Southeast Queens. But these issues are close to our hearts. We definitely understand that there's a lot going on in Southeast Queens, and sometimes with that comes challenges, but we're definitely and we do. And just a little bit about my day-to-day role. My role as a Deputy Borough Commissioner is to support the team, Andrew Arcis and Samantha Dolgoff, who truly work day to day. They're working on our street day to day, not only overseeing the day to
I think we may have lost Jason briefly. There he is.
We'll kick it over to. Can you guys got me now?
Now we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially it's to support the individuals who are my colleagues who are here with us today, at a higher level, and making sure that communities of Queens are receiving the resources that they're expecting when it comes to day-to-day operations, and then also working to support and initiate short, interim, and long-term projects that Andrew and Samantha really communicate with folks on the ground every single day in real time. But with that, I'll kick it over, I think, to Samantha, who has been working in our office a little bit longer than I have, but certainly somebody I look up to when it comes to bringing a lot of projects to fruition, because she's had a lot of success with doing that in Queens, specifically in Southeast Queens too.
Thanks, Jason. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Samantha Dolgoff. I've been working with the Queens office for, I'm approaching my 6th year. So It's been a long time. It doesn't feel like that long, and it also feels like forever. But I have worked all over Queens. I started out in Western Queens, covering CBs 1, 2, and 5. And then in 2017, I took over CB 12 as the planner. Andrew is now the planner for CB 12, but during my time, we did quite a few street improvement projects, including ones in downtown Jamaica. So you might have seen some on Sutphin, Jamaica Avenue, as well as some, further into the residential areas. There was one on Murdoch, and we are continuing to do those projects to improve safety for residents of Southeast Queens. So I'm going to hand it over to Andrew, who is now the borough planner for Community Board 12 and 14.
So yeah, my name is Andrew Arcese, borough planner for Board 12, as well as several others in Queens. So Sam mentioned some of the work that we've done in recent years. And more recently, with myself covering this area of Queens for the past about eight or so months now, right before the pandemic. It was very unfortunate. I was very excited to begin working more closely over here, and and then everything got disrupted, and now almost everything is virtual, and it definitely takes away from that face-to-face, going to civic association meetings and community board meetings and things of that nature. So, but some of the stuff that we're working on now, we got some exciting projects in Southeast Queens, one of which is a bus project, and we can get into some of the details on that. But very happy to be out here, and I myself am a native of Queens. I lived in Queens my whole life, so it's a pleasure serving the people of Queens, because I am one of them. So so it's just great to give back to the place where you're from. So but yeah, with that said, we're myself, Jason, Sam, we're very receptive to folks who have questions or concerns about the things traffic safety wise going on in their community. And we're really happy to work with folks directly, whether it's via phone or email, but we really do appreciate that human connection. We think that's the best part of our job, because government can get a rep of being very bureaucratic and very not so much face to face, and that's something that we thrive on. We love that connection. So if there's things that you're concerned about, or you have questions about, you want to see some improvements, definitely get that our way, and we'll work with you on that.
So Frank and Selvena, there were two things that we really wanted to provide some information on, because there's things that have been quite essential to our city's reopening recently, as we embark on that in a larger magnitude. And so we just wanted to talk about that and those two things, and then we'll jump into questions that have been supplied prior to, and we want to talk through some of those responses, which are going to allow us the opportunity to talk about some of the projects that we have going on in the community. But two things that have been now made permanent in our city, and have played a central role in us reopening our outdoor dining, open streets restaurants, and the outdoor dining initiative, as well as the Open Streets initiative. And these two initiatives not only have provided, specifically Open Streets has provided an opportunity for members of our community where you're at in Southeast Queens. I know that might not be your issue. You guys got me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, you went out for a moment again. So go ahead. You're good.
I'm sitting like right on top of the router. Andrew, if I get cut off, please, feel free to jump in, because it seems like you have a strong connection. But so the Open Streets initiative, as I was saying, has provided folks an abundant amount of space in a street specifically, to allow folks to recreate, get out, stretch their legs. This program has been particularly successful in communities that don't have an abundant amount of park space or open space at that. And Southeast Queens does very well depending on the neighborhood or block where you're at. But this is a new initiative that has really helped folks reimagine, re-envision how their street's supposed to function for them. And it's been very great working with this team here and a larger coalition of folks throughout the borough to bring Open Streets to fruition. We did have a couple of streets, Open Streets locations in CBs 12 and 13. With those though, and those are primarily supported by PD, I think some of the challenges that some of those Open Streets faced were partnerships, dedicated partnerships. What we find and when we're talking about a successful Open Street, we find the success comes from the partner, whether that be a block association, whether it be a band of community residents that live on the block that create a coalition, or a civic organization. When they take this program over, truly take this program over, it's allowed for a number of things to happen. And I think one of those things, you know, specifically when we're talking about the success of this program in the city, Jackson Heights had 1.3 miles of streets that have been an open street. It's a very heavily trafficked corridor when it's not an open street. It's a street that has 9 schools and countless pre-Ks. Its land use has large residential buildings, but over the last several months, a lot of those folks have just re-envisioned how the street is supposed to work for them and taken control of what they want to envision. And as a result, that's actually helping drive a change in narrative. Jackson Heights, that community district, that council district actually is 50 of all 51 council districts in the city of New York that lacks green space. And Open Streets was a huge success. I mean, for a portion of several months, we created with this coalition and their support, of course, support from PD and elected officials, a 1.3 mile linear park where children are learning how to ride their bicycles free of traffic. Where folks are now planting in the medians. There's programming going on. Actually, now it's coupling with our outdoor learning program, which is a DOT interagency initiative that is opening up more space outside of our schools for children to learn in safer atmospheres. And so, you know, as we move forward, you know, we definitely want to engage a lot of communities in South Queens, connect with our community board to give the street back to you. I mean, you know, it might sound crazy, but that's in essence what this program is. You know, once we have a body of folks that really can manage the street themselves, it does become a collaborative initiative between our agencies, between our agency and police department and you and yourselves. And you know, sometimes depending on the street nature, there are changes that we need to make, but we're always here to support the success of an open street. And it's definitely a program that I really, really want to expand and work with you guys in Southeast Queens to do. The second thing, and Andrew Arcisa, I'll kind of kick it over to him, but the second thing is the outdoor dining program. And the outdoor dining program has been one of the most pivotal things that has allowed or breathed life into our city. It's also a program that I have identified a lot of popularity with it, but we do want to work with educating other folks who might not be aware. The outdoor dining process is just a short synopsis. We've been able to get away from the bureaucracy of doing an outdoor seating setup, which allows businesses more surface area to provide their services, whether that be on the sidewalk just outside of their establishment or in the parking lane. Now we have the ability to take the parking lane and give it to business customers in an effort to create or expand a business's opportunity to get a better bottom line in an effort to get more revenue streaming in, because at this moment in time, we know a lot of our small businesses are suffering. So I just want to kick it over to Andrew to give kind of a short synopsis on what we've done in the borough. Andrew is our main, not only is he your borough planner, but he's also a borough-wide institution when it comes to working with small businesses, restaurants, and getting them over the goal line to get more seating on the sidewalk and into the curbside lane. But working in real time to ensure that folks have the resources to provide customers, you guys that go to these restaurants, go to the establishments all the time, to continue operating and providing them with that lifeline. But Andrew, do you want to go into some of the things that you've been working on, and if you want to kind of maybe give an example of what a successful outdoor dining setup looks like in an effort to provide folks with some education on that program?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Jason. Yeah, the open restaurants program, that's what we're calling it, the outdoor dining initiative, whatever you want, you fill in the blank. We're calling it open restaurants. Basically, it's been a very, I would say, successful response to COVID in this challenging year. Successful in the sense that it's provided those restaurants who are able to fill that space just a lifeline. In many cases, it's still not enough, but it is helping some folks get by, and also just gives the opportunity to still sit down and enjoy a nice meal and maybe take your mind off of the issues going on in our world today. So, when it comes to our program, we've had to make several adjustments over the past few months. It started with some initial safety guidelines, but then we had some feedback about how that wasn't the best approach. So we made some adjustments there as to what we're asking restaurant owners to do to keep their site safe. As we're approaching winter now and the weather's getting cold, we've had a lot of questions about heaters and the ability to continue serving folks outside, but doing it in a manner where they can keep folks warm. The city recently I believe it was middle of last week, just released some guidance about heaters. So they can be now the full rules were issued by Department of Buildings and also the FDNY on the heaters. So you can get more details from them directly online as well. But the general gist is that electric heaters are allowed on the sidewalk and the roadway, and then anything powered by propane or natural gas would be.
Like, the technology today is just not great.
Yes, we're adjusting on the fly, and that's how it's gone with a lot of our programs. So I do see some activity in the chat here. There was a question from Miss Faye Hill about open streets in Southeast Queens, and how can we go about obtaining additional open streets. So Jason posted in that chat just the ones that are currently listed as open streets in, I believe those are all in Community Board 12. And then there's several in Community Board 14, which I also cover for our office. And those are out in Far Rockaway on Reed's Lane, as well as Beach 12th Street, forgetting the exact parameters, I think between like Central Ave and Dinsmore Ave, but and then Reed's is basically the whole stretch. But yeah, so in order to request additional open streets, we're looking, I think Jason said it before, our most successful ones have been those that have been pioneered or championed by a community group, because they're the boots on the ground, they're there every day, and they're able to help adjust the barriers and kind of field things on the fly as they go. So, we highly recommend, if you have good locations and there is interest from a community group, or it could even just be a few residents of the block or anything like that, folks who really want to activate the space. We appreciate their assistance in getting that going forward, because, we we want it to be an active space, right? You know, the worst case, not worst, but, you know, we wouldn't want a situation where you establish some barriers and it creates an issue for cars getting through, but there's not much happening in the street anyway, you know, things like that. So if you have specific locations you would like to recommend or you want to discuss, you're welcome to bring them to us, or you can submit them online on our web form as well, and it'll go to a unit that reviews those requests.
Andrew, would you be able to put in the chat box what that website is? And we'll make sure that we push that information out as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is like really great. We do want to take a moment to start to really get into some of the questions that have also come in advance of today's webinar, as well as we have, I think, one more question in the Q&A section right now that still needs to be answered. So question for Department of Transportation. We understand that an impact study must be conducted before new signage or traffic signals are installed. However, it seems like serious accidents speed up that process. Why does it take tragic accidents to happen for these type of changes to occur? Like, is there a way in which the Department of Transportation could work more seamlessly with the community to expedite some of these requests?
So yeah, so I can jump off and kind of, you know, talk about beginning to end and feeling this request, and you know, but I think we should talk about what a traffic signal is supposed to function as, because a lot of members of the public feel that traffic controls are meant to slow down vehicles. They're not meant to slow down vehicles. Traffic controls the right of way for vehicles arriving at that intersection. There are other items, other tools we have in our toolkit to reduce speeds in our communities as they approach an intersection, and we can talk a little bit about those. I want to get to the heart of that question because it's definitely a question that our agency feels or fields on a regular basis. And we'll talk about the proactive approach that our agency does have, but also at the same time acknowledge the federal guidelines that our agency follows and every municipality in our country follows when it comes to the feasibility of installing a traffic signal at an intersection, and that study. And so I guess I'll talk about it from beginning to end. There are proactive approaches by which our agency does look at addressing
I think Jason is frozen again.
Yes, Andrew, you want to pick up for him?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Jason was getting to, so traffic signals, when we review an intersection, so we take a request. I think he's back now, but Jason, if you don't mind, I'll pick it up. But so yeah, when we feel the request for a traffic signal study, it's you know, our engineers, they look at an intersection based on federal guidelines that we receive from the federal government, based on is what we call the warrants. You know, what warrants a traffic signal or an all-way stop sign to be at this intersection, because as Jason was saying, you know, they're meant to assign right of way. They're meant to, you know, determine who gets to go through the intersection at a safe measure, and they're not meant to control speed. I mean, I guess you have a byproduct of a stop sign or a signal is to control speeds, you know, if it's red, right? But the point of the warrants is that we wouldn't want to put a traffic signal or an all-way stop sign at an intersection where it doesn't make sense from a volume perspective. That's one of our most common warrants. So if it's an intersection where there's very rarely, you know, it's very rarely busy, it's not that busy at all. If you put a stop sign there and then a driver who's familiar with this intersection is passing through, they'll see the stop sign, but in their head, you know, they've been through this intersection a million times. they'll say, oh, there's never anyone here. And they're more likely to blow through that stop sign. And that creates a false sense of security for a pedestrian or a cyclist or another driver who's passing through the intersection on the opposite approach. So with that said, that's why when we do a study, that, you know, these are the things that our inspectors are looking for. They're counting the number of people that pass through an intersection, regardless of the mode that they use. And then they make their determination based on that data.
Okay, thank you for, did he freeze?
Andrew's on pause now. But I guess, you know, and that study is specifically called an intersection control study. And so to go over some of those federal guidelines that we follow are warrants, actually. There's about 9 of them, and this is all information that can be found on our website, and I'll put that in the link so folks could see that. But some of the warrants that we do follow, as Andrew had stated earlier, are vehicular volume counts, pedestrian volume counts. We analyze whether or not it's a school crossing. We also look at a coordinated signal system and how that communicates with other signals. We look at crash data, crash experience at that location, the roadway network, and then the intersection near a grade crossing. So there's kind of like, I guess, what's the best way to put this? Whether or not the intersection we're looking at is in close proximity to a stop sign and or other traffic signal, and analyzing how those two would operate with one another. Now, a lot of times, I think, you know, folks believe that the city's not looking at an item, and a crash is deemed to you know, an unfortunate incident. Sometimes does prompt you know, some additional treatments, and that kind of speaks to our Vision Zero initiative. It's the citywide initiative that kind of brings us a lot of what we're talking about here right now, and it's kind of bread and butter of what DOT's been doing. But under Vision Zero, this has really pushed our city into a more proactive approach with addressing areas, intersections, long corridors proactively in an effort to make an intervention before something does happen. With that said, you know, there are many times where we'll study an intersection and it is not found to be feasible because it doesn't trigger any of those warrants. And that speaks to, you know, kind of gets me to speak to what Andrew had kind of provided, that if we do put a signal or a stop sign there, it could have an adverse negative impact on the network or the flow of traffic in that space. So it is definitely a fine touch. But with that said, there have been opportunities where we receive a denial, and there is an X amount of time by which we do come back to restudy that location. And we do look at land use, we do look at network changes, we do look at volume.
Okay, technology got us again, but we are now at 6:50. So in the interest of time, we're going to ask Frank to move us to the next question.
Yes, definitely. I know folks in Southeast Queens, this is an issue that is really near and dear to them. We see trucks that are parked throughout the community sometimes. So our question is it legal for box trucks with commercial plates to be parked in front of residential homes overnight and throughout the weekend? You know, what are some steps that you think residents should take when they see this?
So I could take that one. So this is something that we get in our office pretty frequently. It is a huge issue, especially in Southeast Queens and being near the airport and being near a couple highways. So you see that pretty often. And it's an issue that it's actually enforceable by the current traffic rules as they stand now. So the rules as they are is a commercial vehicle or a truck for that matter, but a commercial vehicle specifically cannot park on any New York City street for more than 3 hours at a time, unless they're actively working. Let's say it's an electrician or a plumber making a repair nearby or something like that. They have to be there all day or whatever it is. So that's the only exception. Other than that, 3 hours is the rule. And then specifically, the rule applies in residential neighborhoods. They cannot park at all between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. And that's just a citywide rule. It's enforceable in the traffic laws. I think it's like section 4-08. I know it just because I'm reading it all the time because I get the question all the time. And yeah, so we point to our colleagues over at NYPD to assist with enforcement, whether it's issuing tickets or sometimes they're able to secure a heavy duty tow. I know that's a little harder to get. It's a tough resource, but yeah.
Really quick.
Sorry, I was gonna say, I'm glad that question was asked, 'cause Frank knows we get asked this question all of the time because there's a lot of trucks that park. But sorry, go ahead, Frank.
I was gonna say, as a follow-up, what do you advise residents, those who are listening, what do you advise for them to do when they see a truck parked in a residential street between the hours of 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. or longer than 3 a.m. in any particular place, longer than 3 hours in any particular place?
I think a good way to start would be, take photos. Doesn't hurt to have photos to show folks, whether it's PD or whether it's a community board or whomever that needs to see it. So that's one. And then two, depending on the location, a lot of times you see this happen along maybe cemeteries or along a park. Or in a location, maybe not in front of some homes, but just kind of off to the side. So if it's a location like that, something that we do, we work with the community board on requests like this to potentially add a no standing sign. And the reason why I say we work with the community board is because we wouldn't want to add no standing to a community, and take away a ton of parking, if residents still use that parking. Because as I mentioned, it's already enforceable by the traffic rules. But as an added incentive, we could add that sign, but it would be for everybody, no standing. So we like to work with the board and make sure that folks are on the same page. If there's a petition, let's say, some residents of the block are really, really, upset about this issue, they welcome to put forward a petition and work with us and work with the board, and we'll go through with some signage.
Parking is hot commodity around Southeast Queens. I don't think we're gonna lose parking, but definitely it's good to know that these things can be enforced. Before we go back to the questions that were submitted in advance, just wanna take a moment, do a little bit of housekeeping. In the room, we have District Leader Faye Hill, who I'm gonna in a moment give the opportunity to elaborate on a question that I'm about to ask. And we also have Democratic nominee Khalil Anderson for the New York State Assembly also in the room, and we'll extend an invitation to Khalil if he would like to give any remarks or have any specific questions. And then I see that we have Ms. Cruz. We are going to get to you also in that order, where we will have you come off of mute and ask the question as well. So the question from Faye Hill is, there was a proposal since 2017 about extending the Q77 bus in Springfield Gardens, and that is still on the back burner. This would be a big advantage to residents living in Springfield Gardens, Rosedale, Laurelton, St. Albans, and Far Rockaway. And so I am going to allow Faye to kind of elaborate on that a little bit more so that you all can answer, okay? So Faye.
Yeah. Hello, hi. Can you hear me?
Faye. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you for having this meeting. And my question, I didn't know it was part of DOT, but was my question appropriate for this meeting? Was my question appropriate for this meeting? Hello?
Yeah, I think it's definitely fair to ask, and we'll do to our. I mean, while we're not MTA, we do work closely with MTA. So to the best of our abilities, we'll try to answer and respond to the specific question about the Q77.
Yeah. Well, the Q77 has been a proposal for the residents in Springfield Gardens, and it's a small issue in a sense where it would be a big impact to our community. Now, the 77 bus comes down Springfield Boulevard and turns. First of all, it used to come down to Springfield and 145th Road. Now it turns on South Conduit. So residents from Springfield, Rosedale have to walk up to the Conduit. Now, the proposal was that the bus comes all the way down to 147th Avenue, where you have the Q111, you have the and the Q113, where people can have access to take the 77 bus and go to maybe Merritt Boulevard, and there are people who work in Long Island could travel on the N4. But for these people to take the 77 from Rosedale and Far Rockaway and some parts of Rosedale, they have to go all the way down to Jamaica Avenue to connect to the 77. And this is no way is another 20 minutes for these our passengers to get connected to the 77. And all the 77 has to do is come all the way down to 147 where the people can connect. And even when they take the 77, they can stay on Merritt Boulevard, get off at Merritt Boulevard and get the 85, and they can transfer to the 5. And you know, it's a big impact on people who don't have a car. So this proposal is on the back burner, and I like the MTA to address it as soon as possible, because I know a lot of people are driving now because of the COVID-19, but I don't know what the future will for the COVID-19, but this has to be implemented. We need that Q77. I've spoken to Senator Comrie, Idenique Miller, Donovan Richards, and my community board also. And it came up one time and then it's in the back burner. And I would like you to come forward to the front burner to burn. And I'll listen to your answers or whatever suggestion you might give me, because I have to jump off and go on to another call, a chairperson for the Parks for Community Board 13. So thank you for listening to me. And also, I did send another question in about the trucks. These trucks, the violators only pay $65 when they're parked in residential areas, these trucks. So I'll listen to you guys with my questions after, but I have to jump off in a few minutes, okay? Thank you.
Got it. No problem. And thank you, Ms. Hill, for your continued advocacy.
It's good to see you, good to see you, Jason. You know, you have a beard. Yeah, I see that, huh? Good to see you.
Yeah, you know,
okay.
I don't have to dress up anymore.
I know, I see that.
Much, so I thought I'd, you know, start changing this. But it's nice to hear your voice, and I hope you're doing well. Your family's doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
I know.
Thank you very much.
And I look forward to engaging you after this, because you know, I don't want this to be, you know, just because we talked about it here, we should continue talking about it. But I just want to just first explain, you know, our agency DOT does work closely with MTA. If I'm not mistaken, because I was a part of the Queens bus network redesign, which is an MTA initiative, state-led initiative that is now on hold as a result of COVID. I believe that the Q77 route changes were proposed under that initiative, and altering that route and combining that route with a proposal that turned them into the QT71. I'm just trying to remember that off of the top of my head. But you know, with that said, you know, I think the way to bring this back to the front burner is to advocate to MTA. Work with a coalition of your friends and neighbors, anybody who might be benefiting from this bus service or this proposal that was floated before, and ask that MTA work in concert with us to address some of the concerns you're stating here. You know, there are two ways that we are continuing to work on bus projects in Southeast Queens. The bus projects that we're working on and is within a different initiative. It's a Better Buses program that's tied to our reopening. And the two projects that we do have going on in Southeast Queens are the downtown Jamaica project which was proposed for Archer and for Jamaica Avenue and Archer Avenue. This is a proposal that is still going through a community review process as we kicked off several community advisory board meetings. We are working closely with that board, Board 12, and area elected officials to refine the project, because there have been some proposals that the community wanted to see some alterations to, and that's kind of part of how we work this process. The community advisory board process is a different process from the community board process, in the sense that, you know, given the pandemic and what the pandemic was doing to our transportation networks, we wanted to put resources into getting folks from point A to point B on these two specific networks. And so we focused that on a citywide, as part of a citywide initiative. The second project that we're working on is the Merrick Boulevard bus project, which is moving forward, and we're kind of moments away from beginning implementation as we refine that project. We've had several community board meetings that have included all area elected officials, and we're continuing to do outreach with that, specifically to businesses along that stretch. We've conducted multiple on-site visits with senior residents over there on 108 Avenue, and then as well as Community Board 12, in an effort to refine the project that we do aim to implement this fall. And just want to go back to the truck question, which Ms. Fay had added another point to just before she I'm just going to take off my DOT hat and put on my council hat, because I did work in policy for 4 years down at City Hall when I was working for the council prior to this job. And you know, one of the things that we can certainly do is make sure that we're enveloping our city council partners into having a discussion, because this discussion does happen between our intergovernmental unit, which has a policy unit within it, into devising solutions on upping the amount of violations. I do feel $65 is the cost of doing business for some of these companies who do own trucks and are violating some of our communities. So that's one component of a solution. I just want to kind of talk about an example, because I'm not gonna lie, I love towing trucks. I love towing cars that are not supposed to be there. This is probably one of my most favorite things to do. Sam knows that, Andrew knows that, and my commissioner knows that. I love walking away with the day that said we towed away 60 cars, and I've done it. I've worked with a coalition of community folks, with our agency folks and our partners in DSNY and in PD to tow 60 cars. I mean, that's a reality, but how do we get there to that point, right? And it's really, you know, bolstering the voices that we've had here, you know, because one of the things I saw in Faye's comment is that, or somebody else's comment is that the police can't be everywhere all the time. I respect that. You know, I don't think anybody can be anywhere all the time. So it's definitely certain I respect, but it doesn't mean that the issue is going to go away, all right? And it doesn't mean that we can schedule an operation to address the issue. And we have worked successfully with the precinct, because the precincts, a lot of our precincts actually do have resources that they dedicate at specific moments to ensure that they're addressing truck routes. Now, if the community feels that there are specific neighborhoods, specific locations that need an operation to happen, because this issue is like graffiti. You need to get to it, address it. If it comes back, you need to get right back at it again in an effort to set a signal. Now that's one component, the component, but also the signage is that other component that we mentioned, which allows in perpetuity for NYPD to do the job that they continue to do. So let's get in touch, you know, Ms. Faye or anybody else here. We're going to provide our email addresses for follow-up after this on an individual basis. I feel towing trucks. This is something that we've had a lot of success with in the past. I have no shame with finding some success in Southeast Queens, if that's what this community is you know, feels that they are suffering from. So let's work together to do that and change some of those responses that, you know, some folks have been seeing over time in an effort to get some results. tangible results going forward, whether they be interim or short term. I want to speak to it, and I want to work to get some action.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. Right now, we'd like to have Khalil Anderson, who's the Democratic nominee for the New York State Assembly, speak and provide some remarks as well. Thank you so very much, District Leader Fay Hill, for your question. Khalil?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Selvena, for having this tonight. Deputy Commissioner, thank you for being on tonight, and everyone else, thank you all for being a part of this very important meeting. I want to just mention how important it is for transit issues to be highlighted in this part of my soon-to-be district. District Leader Hill mentioned something very important, talking about how trucks continuously park along spaces where there aren't any alternate side for a long period of time. This is something that is continuous. And while I'm not the most punitive person, I do think how you deter crime of this magnitude and of this respect, people standing, vehicles standing for long periods of time is addressing that with fines. I think that's an important part of it. But just piggybacking off of what Fay Hill said around the Q77, certainly the extension of that bus route to Green Acres Mall, where it's proposed now, as you said, with the QT71, like we have no bus service that goes to Green Acres Mall through Rosedale, through Springfield, sort of Brookville area. So that would be certainly a plus. And I know the redesign is on hold now because of COVID-19, but certainly before we went into this pause, there were some concerns about the plan, and we'd love to be able to create the forum and space to revisit some of those concerns that folks had around just making sure that these bus routes are connecting folks to viable destinations. I think that that's vitally important. But just piggybacking off of what she said, what I came on for was that my block, my neighborhood block where I live on, they formed a little neighborhood association, and they're having some of the same systemic issues around, and I say it's systemic because it's happening across the Rockaways and across my district, where folks want stop signs, they want safety measures to slow down traffic, and to really address some of the excessive speeding that happens around. And we know, Frank and Selvena, we live here, we know excessive speeding that happens, but it just seems like it's an uphill battle. I want to direct them in the right way. I told them to start a petition and really just go the grassroots way of just exposing this issue to DOT around safety, speed bumps, stop signs, making sure that traffic studies can happen in a real meaningful way, especially for people who live on that block. They know the traffic patterns are not what they need to be in terms of being conducive to safety. So how do we kind of wade through this, and how can I advise them?
Yeah, and thank you, Khalil. Congratulations on your new role. It's a big deal, and I want to definitely make sure that we work with you. And what was the name of your new block association that you guys created?
They're still coming up with a name. I think they've settled. This is what they've settled with today. Let's see what happens. But it's called the Far Rockaway Block Neighborhood Empowerment Alliance. That's what they've got.
Oh, that's what's up.
Let's see. Let's see if it changes next week.
Yeah. So let's. We're definitely. So I think the best way for our team, to interact with your that dedicated group of folks is to straight up meet. I mean, you don't have to have a name just yet. We can pull a group of you of your.
Oh no, they're meeting already. They're in their 6th meeting. They're meeting. It's just how do
okay, yeah.
Guide these folks. Yeah, they've been meeting for the last month and a half. But like, how do I guide these folks along the process of getting those security measures for the block?
Yeah, so I think one, we want to introduce ourselves to them and have that conversation in an effort to kind of download what their day-to-day is like, right? And then prior to us setting up that conversation, we can pull a lot of information about what's going on, and depending on what specific area of Far Rock you're talking about, in an effort to, one, show what's going on, and then two, how we can build off of that and then talk about next steps. Because there's a lot going on in Far Rockaway. You know, we didn't want to pull together a lot of information, because if we did, we'd be talking about a lot of nuts and bolts about things that, you know, might not be relevant to everyone in this conversation, which is why we want to just have this conversation really be a jump off point to other conversations that we have in different communities that are included in Southeast Queens. So I'm going to put my contact information in here right now, and then I'll ask the team members to also put their contact information. I think, you know, generally me and Andrew are the best points of contact, because we deal with the day-to-day. Samantha is definitely part of these conversations, but, you know, she helps with devising the plans and then bringing them to you guys in an effort to kind of reformulate them and making sure, and I love to say this, we Queensify them so that they work for members of our community. You know, I just want to be open, honest. You know, they're like we said, we jumped off. We said we're Queens people. We ain't never gonna be nothing but Queens people, and we're very proud of that. And you know, and so from our previous experiences working with communities, we know that a lot of the proposals we bring aren't the right fit. Just because it worked in Sunnyside doesn't mean that it's going to work in Far Rock. Doesn't mean it's going to work on Brookfield Boulevard. Doesn't mean it's going to work in, you know, in other areas. So, you know, we're definitely part of having that conversation and continuing that conversation in an effort to materialize results. I'll be honest. I mean, I enjoy the pressure. Whether, you know, it does stress me out, but, you know, squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I'm definitely want to be a part of giving our communities tools to put pressure on us, tangentially on the city, to bring resources here. Because I think that's what's actually got Southeast Queens a lot of investment in recent years. We're seeing a lot of work happening capital work happening in Southeast Queens, which is something that I used to be a reporter for before this in Queens, in Southeast Queens, worked for the Queens Press. And I covered a lot of meetings, community board meetings, where folks were asking, when is the city going to do this? And these were meetings in the 2010s. And now we're seeing a lot of that funding being streamed into Southeast Queens in an effort to rebuild a lot of things subsurface, so that we don't see ponding, we don't see flooding, we don't see a lot of the things that Southeast Queens has materialized from. That's great. Let's keep more money coming in, right? I mean, there's
He's frozen.
and so I see those as opportunities to continue to draw down more resources.
Well, thank you for that answer. And just circling back to the 77, any sort of specific update on the Rosedale piece that Ms. District Leader Hill spoke about?
Yeah, so just you know, to kind of add a little bit more to that, you know, our given the fact that that project was put on hold, we haven't seen a proposal. Well, that initiative was put on hold. We haven't seen any of those proposals be materialized. I'm asking the group if the group feels, because this isn't specific.
Oh, I think he froze. So
Yeah, he'll come back. He did. He'll come back shortly. We've been having little technical issues for most of the evening, but
this is our new life.
Yeah. There he goes. He's back.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, in a short sense, you know, please, you know, if we have this conversation when we go to your block association, you know, we can work to get MTA to be there to talk about this. We did try to get MTA to be here tonight. Unfortunately, they had a previous engagement, but you know, we like to pull them in. They're our partners, and they aren't afraid of you know, of doing a lot of public meetings, because it's the nature of the game and it's the nature of how we actually get success. So I ask that you know, if you don't have contacts at MTA, we can provide them to you. So you start having that conversation with them, and then let's bring everybody to the table to see if there's something that we can do to alter these routes in an effort to make sure that they work better. I personally know what it's like to try to get to Green Acres Wall. I had a girlfriend that lived there for quite some time, and coming from Western Queens was not fun. So you know, I know what you're talking about from experience. Yeah.
I said that'll bring you there, and just plus also like the and Frank and Selvena directly, you know, y'all could speak to this, like the flooding that happens there on 147th in Brookville, which is why the 114 bus actually stopped running through Snake Road, was because the perpetual flooding kept damaging, you know, the buses. The $700,000, and this is how the bus driver quoted it to me as I spoke to him and a couple of other operators in that route. Those articulated buses are quite expensive, and that equipment is getting damaged each time it goes through, you know, those flooded streets. So certainly looking at infrastructure in and of itself, so those buses can run effectively. I just got your contact, Samantha. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Jason.
Just want to use the opportunity to give a shout out to Council Member Richards. Brookville Boulevard was mentioned, and recently our team partnered with Councilmember Richards to clean up Brookville Boulevard. Some of y'all might have seen a jet ski out there not too long ago, but that is gone, or the piano that was out there. You know, we partnered, and I myself was out there with a shovel cleaning up stuff. So, you know, I just want to give a shout out, because that was a big endeavor, and I know that that's an area that does see a lot of illegal dumping. If folks have questions about that, we can talk about that. That was a big Herculean effort, and an effort. It was a 2-day cleanup. We thought we needed 3, but we got a lot done in 2. So shout out to also to Parks, to DSNY, to our brothers and sisters in PD that helped us shut down the roadway, because it was a big endeavor. There is a long-term proposal, which I don't believe has funding to rebuild Brookville. I'm not too sure where that's at, but I think when we do have a conversation with your folks about the 77, we can envelope that into that conversation. It's definitely something that I had a conversation with some of Councilmember Richards' staff that day of the cleanup. You know, what does the future of Brookville Boulevard look like? I used to take that down to the beach as a kid, so I know the history, and I know what you're talking about there too, as it involves not only the bus route, but also just the nature of that roadway between 147 and Rockaway Boulevard.
Thanks so much for that, Jason. And I know Tanya Cruz is on here with her hand up, and it's been up for quite some time. So Tanya, I apologize for the delay, but I am going to take you off of mute and ask you to ask your question. And welcome.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tanya Cruz. I'm from Community Board 13, been a board member for a gazillion trillion years. At the same time, I sit on the Queens Traffic Safety Board. So let me start with a big shout out to Borough Commissioner Garcia, because she's holding us down and she's making things happen. And just so everybody knows, there was 40 motorcycle fatalities in the borough of Queens, you know, in the 5 boroughs. 19 of them occurred in Queens. Approximately 5 of them occurred within District 12 and District 13. So this is a big concern, and we are coming together. So the shout outs to Chin, shout outs to Garcia, because we are going to address that issue. I need everybody to be a little more upfront with the dirt bikes. I need everybody to come to the forefront, see a bike, tell us about a bike, call anybody at DOT, call anybody at the community board, because we're going to try to save their life. And we're going to try to find better places for these dirt bikes to go, as well as train motorcycles. So now on to my community issue. We have an upcoming survey with the Belmont Racetrack Development, and we have a great opportunity to bridge a gap from our prior study that was in the southern tier and came short up to Laurelton. And then we have probably a 20 block gap, or maybe more. Back when we created the confines of this study, I knew we were going to have a future study, and Craig can pretty much tell you my only request was, could y'all just fill in that gap and don't have a hole? So now we have a good snapshot of where we're at on this side of Queens. It's very important. We're about to engage this, and we're about to see some serious traffic coming through. At this time, we need to relook at 115th Avenue, because that is a direct straightaway off of Dutch Broadway that swings through the 2 boards, and we have had fatalities So we've talked about a couple of different things, but with this pending, we need to revisit those corridors. As far as trucks are concerned, I'm going to ask to please look to Laurelton Parkway from Linden Boulevard and just shy of Merrick, because you're going to see them come off of Springfield and start to, that's their go-to spot. That's the go-to spot for box trucks. So I understand that everybody has to make a living, but until we can find a home for them, we need them to get off of our streets because it does block people's vision. And that's the most important thing that I'm concerned about, is the fact that it obstructs vision. But it's just real quick that I wanted to get on this record. I mean, I'm going to be talking to you guys on future, but I've got to get on that meeting that Faye was telling you about the parks. So real quick, is this any interest to guys? Have you heard these things?
So, and I'm not too sure if Andrew can speak to it. I am familiar with the Belmont project. I haven't worked in it intimately, but I know that that's a conversation that is jump starting, and I know for a fact that a lot of members of Southeast Queens have expressed concerns about what that project would bring to the Queens side, and you know, and we're very sensitive to that. My deputy brother Albert Silvestri has been working in that, but I was just taking some notes, and as that conversation jump starts, I want to make sure that you know, our team is talking to you, Ms. Cruz, about those concerns, and that they're getting enveloped into any type of any development of traffic patterns as we move forward. I can work to try to get an update on where that is at. I believe it was discussed not too long ago last week internally. So it is something that, you know, it is coming back. I do want to just thank you for your service. I want to thank you for your shout outs to my sister, Commissioner Garcia.
Yes.
She is definitely somebody who cares a lot about these communities. She does send her regards to everybody here, and as well as my brother from another, Craig Chin. I know you were corresponding with them on the backside, just to go to show you, you know, how much we know about folks. You know, even though we're not talking one-on-one, we know who we're talking to, in an effort to make sure that we're all on the same page. Love when synergy's happening. What I'm going to do is, Ms. Cruz, is I'm going to get an update on the Belmont item. I'm going to follow up with you along with Craig, because I think Craig is on that project, not Andrew. But in an effort to provide an interim update and then continue enveloping you into any changes. One thing I just wanted to talk about, because you talked about box trucks and concerns with truck route changes. If you went into some good detail there, and I didn't get a chance to write all that down, but if we can follow up offline when we do and get that down, ensure that our freight team is aware of what you're proposing in an effort to help guide the conversation with those who have that proposal forward with us. But thank you for your service. You know the issues. Also in the motorcycle
Sorry, really
issues,
quickly. So Tanya,
yeah.
do you mind if I give Jason your email address? Because when you registered, I'm sure you gave it.
Absolutely. You can
Okay.
publish it everywhere. And let's hold another town hall to talk about our kids on those dirt bikes, because they're annoying everybody. But everybody's got to realize that it's parents who are buying those dirt bikes and letting their kids run in traffic on us. So we do need to have a community approach to this, because DOT can only do but so much. And NYPD, I don't want them touching my children at all, at any cost. So we can only do but so much, and we have to meet them. And they are so dedicated. It's unbelievable.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
Yes.
I think I have her email already, but send it to me again, so I'll take it.
Absolutely. I'm going to go run on this parks meeting real quick. So great, guys. Thank you so much.
Ms. Cruz.
Look forward to finishing up.
All right. It is 7:25 p.m. and we just like to thank everybody who joined us for this community conversation talking about transportation, particularly focusing here in Southeast Queens. As a community of color, we know that sometimes transportation issues are a big one. Our community sometimes can be a transportation desert, but to hear the great work that the city is doing to improve our current transportation climate, we really appreciate it. Selvena and I were actually talking to each other, and one thing that we said is, well, like, this was such a great conversation because of the depth that we were able to go into, and it's really a testament to Samantha, Jason, and Andrew for just the knowledge and insight that you have and your willingness to come here and speak to the Queens residents, particularly Southeast Queens residents. So we really, really appreciate you and all that you do. And I want to let you know that as your fellow colleague in city government, it's something that I do appreciate having other colleagues who are able to talk about issues like this. And Commissioner Garcia is a good friend back when I was in the council and she was a deputy commissioner and seeing her growth and seeing the team's growth, you know, it really is a testament to her leadership and the leadership of you all. Before we close, I want to thank Chantel Johnson, who's been working on a lot of the logistics for us, despite the technical difficulties. Chantel ensured that we kept the engine going and running, so we appreciate you, Chantel. I also want to acknowledge district leader, newly elected district leader or Democratic nominee for district leader, Sherwin James, who came a little earlier. He was here, but he had to, go. And thank you to all of our other elected officials and nominees who are here, and to our great co-sponsors. Without further ado, it's such a pleasure to work with such a great individual, a leader in our community, really the brains behind a lot of these operations, bringing direct services here to the community. So I'd like to pass the mic to Selvena Brooks Powers.
So thanks so much, Frank, and echoing the sentiments from Frank, I really think that this town hall tonight was truly informative. We will be sharing the video with the community so that they can hear firsthand from you about what's happening in Southeast Queens that the Department of Transportation is working on. And really also to see how willing you each are to work with the community around issues that are of importance. So we thank you for that. I am looking forward to definitely building working relationships with each of you so that we can continue to keep the conversation going as we have more issues coming up. You all have been very responsive in the planning of this town hall, and this information again was truly valuable. So thank you for going over with us. This was amazing, and again, look forward to connecting with you in the future. And thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Guys. Great job, Selvena, Frank. Thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you for coming.
Night.